Okay. It's another one. Look, I don't have a whole lot of knife videos. I didn't start doing knife videos because I thought, oh, hey, look at all these knife videos. Maybe I can jump in, get in on this, be part of that, get more viewers. No, just knives have been a part of my dad gave me my first knife when I was 4 or 5 years old. It was a pocket knife. I remember I brought it to school when I was in kindergarten. It got taken away from me. I didn't bring it to school to do any damage. I just was so happy with owning it. I wanted to show my friends, look at me. I'm like a big kid because I'm responsible enough to own my own knife. So I've been around it my whole life. My dad had, I wish I had it. I gave it to when I found my brother in 2001, I had this knife that was my dad's that was busted up, and I had it refurbished by actually a very well-known knife maker here in Los Angeles who made the hook for the movie Hook, Tony Swanton. And it was a German Solingen steel. It had Lion Killer written, etched into the blade, and it had an eagle head on the pommel. So it had that beak hook on the end of it. Originally had like bone or stag scales on it. I think it was full tang though. And my dad had chipped the tip off of it at one point because he used to have fun with it throwing it. But he used that knife to dress deer all the time, like chop the bones and whatnot. I don't think he really used it for skinning, but when he did, we're going to get into this because what is this video going to be about? This video is going to be hopefully short. It's just going to be about handling. So I want to talk about handle shape a little bit and how to properly handle your knife in your hand because I'm watching these videos and I just recently, it's like this whole 4th of July thing, I was kind of bummed out. I'm laying around, I'm lethargic, I'm not happy because I'm having issues with this stinking van. This front end, which I'm sure is more of a Hooper's issue, which if you guys want to know what that's all about, look at my videos, you'll see. So, what did I do? I laid around and I started watching knife videos. And yeah, I bought a couple new knives too, which are not here yet. I need help. Like I need an intervention. I need a little help. But anyhow, I'm watching these videos and these are guys that have done, some of them hundreds of videos. They've handled hundreds or thousands maybe, some of them, of knives. And they're out there and they're giving these reviews of these knives in practical usage. They're out in the forest, they're chopping limbs. And their critiques, in my opinion, more often than not, when it comes to the comfortability of the handle, how the knife is functioning through chopping, things like this. I want you to watch these videos after you watch this video. Go back and watch your favorite knife videos. Because 99 times out of 100, what they're doing is they have this hard grip here, the full grip on the blade. All right? You do not chop like that. That is the worst way to chop with a knife. Okay? I'm going to get into some handling instruction here with different handles. I brought another knife here that's going to be fun for you guys to see because it's going to look like a joke knife to a lot of you. And I'm also going to talk about how to use a Bowie knife or where you grip it to do different tasks. Because I keep hearing dumb things. I'm not saying the people are dumb. I'm capable of saying dumb things. I say dumb things in a lot of my videos because I'm not thinking. Or I misspeak. Or whatever. I'm not perfect. I think you guys know that by now. Far from it. But I just have to explain a few things. And the first thing I want to go over when it comes to a Bowie knife in particular is just a little bit more on the history of it. Because first of all, Jim Bowie didn't invent the Bowie knife. He borrowed this knife from his brother. It was a butcher knife kind of thing. It probably didn't have a cross guard on it. It's just bigger, a little bit thicker maybe. We don't even know. But the thing is that people of that time period, that was 1827, carried knives for self-defense. That was the main purpose. And most of those knives actually had a blade that was more similar to this as far as like not being super tall this way, a little thinner. They're a little longer, usually, probably at thinner than this 1/4 inch thick. They're probably much closer to the 3/16. And something like that, man. Humans been using knives for thousands of years, in particular the Europeans, you know. So, I mean, even if you go back to the Romans with the gladius, they also had a shorter version, right? The Greeks did the same. Everybody has this. A lot of the time, you know, it's you're fighting with both hands, right? So it's very common. It's been around forever. I think probably during that time period, those knives were their intention, the intent of that was to use them for self-defense. They evolved over time to become a more useful tool and into this shape with more of a belly, a little bit front heavier, so you could chop and do all these other tasks. People will tell you this is not a good chopper. Well, that's because they're not doing it right. This is what I'm going to go over with you, all right? Can't remember everything I even wanted to say in this video. Number one thing are the different grips with a knife, okay? And you almost never do this. I mean, even in a knife fight situation, which most of you are never going to get into, let me tell you something right now. I've been in situations where people pulled knives on me. I've never had a knife on myself when it's happened. There's 2 instances I can think of off the top of my head. One happened, both of these I'm bringing up that I can recall because I have witnesses to it. So if you don't believe me, I could get a friend on it to say, I was there. I saw that happen. Because the first time, and I've told this story before, when I was a kid, and I deserved it, straight up, but this kid was a jerk, and he confronted me, and he was a few feet from me, and he literally took a pocket knife out of his pocket and opened it in front of me and went like this and started slashing at me. Now, I was young. I was 12 years old, 12, 13 at the most. And don't ask me how this happened. I'm not telling you I am some sort of, I don't know where it comes from, okay? But I remember looking at him and thinking, I saw myself spinning. I just saw myself spinning around. And I ended up where I stepped into him and hit his wrist really hard and grabbed it. I know this sounds like a movie, but it's the truth. I grabbed his wrist and I spun around and I hit him in the chest with my elbow as I pulled him. Bam, like this. And I wrestled, and I don't know how I got it, but I got his pocket knife out of his hand. And he stepped back like this, and I went like this with it, and I wasn't going to come after him. I was just trying to scare him, and he ran away. I was talking to this was in Paterson, New Jersey, on the corner of Emerson Street and Union Ave, on this lawn. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a retired police officer from Paterson a few years ago, and I said, there was this time with this kid. He goes, dude, I was there. I watched that happen. It was unbelievable. I didn't know he was there. I didn't remember that. Second time that I can recall, this doesn't include, times with drunk Marines and shit like that. That's, it doesn't matter. This is like real world scenario, I was in Paris during the millennium. I went to Paris. So it's a whole other long story. This is actually on video. Unfortunately, it's on VHS, and I don't even have a way to play that right now. Not the whole incident, but part of the incident. She filmed up to a point. Went there with a friend of mine, French-Canadian gal, and it was an awesome trip. We met these American exchange students, and we got real tight with them, and we hung out with them all night, and, we had the Y2K thing, everybody's phones went down. We're all yelling, bon année, bon année, bon année, all night long, drunk people all over the city. We were at the river, right there at the Eiffel Tower, big fireworks show. The police actually used CS gas to disperse everybody. I know, because it got in my nostrils, and you never forget that if you've ever experienced it. And en masse, the entire city went to the Champs-Élysées. And at some point, there was a commotion, and I heard people yelling my name for help. And there was about 3 or 4 of these American kids, you know, they're young kids. I was 34. I just turned 34 years old. And these kids we were with, I think they were all taller than me, actually. But they were just college kids and probably rich kids. You know, I mean, they were in Paris in an exchange student program, right? You know what I'm saying? One of them, and I got pictures of these people. Actually, they're on my Facebook page. If you're a Facebook friend of mine, you can go into my picture folders and see some of this. So one of them was actually a pretty strapping dude, and he and I bonded pretty well. And all I know is there was a group of 8 or 9, as I recall, young people. Now it turns out they were Algerian kids, and they were probably in the age range from like 15 to 19, and they seemed smaller, you know, dark skin, you know, speaking Arabic, and just talking. Basically, the way it started was they heard these guys speaking American, you know, speaking English rather. You could say speaking America because if you talk to the English, they seem to think we're bastardizing their language. I suppose a little. Anyhow, they heard English, sized them up as Americans, and started just attacking them verbally. It escalated to a physical fight. And I didn't know what was going on because I was talking to girls. The whole reason I haven't gotten very ahead in life is I'm always talking to girls. It's a whole other story. So I'm over here and I hear my name being yelled out, and I look over and there's a brawl in front of me. So part of the video captures me grabbing these guys by the collar and literally grab by a collar and the hip, like the waist, the belt, whatever, and just pulling them away and tossing them around and separating everybody. And this kid, this Algerian kid, comes up like right in front of me with a knife. And he goes like this, you know. And I looked at him, and without even missing a beat, I just looked him straight in the face. I said, "You come at me with that knife, I'm going to take it from you. I'm going to stick it up your ass." It was probably even more of a violent, more intense look. I don't feel like doing a whole acting job for you right here. And I'm like this, staring at him. And this kid, he looks up at me, he puts the knife down to his side, and he just turned around and he walked away, looking at me like this and walking away and joining his friends. That was the end of it. So thank God he just believed me, because I don't know how that actually would have went down if he would have attacked me with the knife. Those are 2 true stories. So, you know, it's not me handling a knife, it's just me handling a situation. You understand what I'm saying? But this is still a real thing. Having told you those stories, and there's many more, but, you know, I just want to throw that out there. Here's some things I'm seeing in some of these videos that, again, or I just want to kind of correct what I'm saying, basically, or at least talk to you about knife grip, okay? One of the things is, I don't know if I have enough room here with this table, but if you were going to get into some sort of fight with somebody with this thing, you really want to hold it more like this. I've seen a guy talk about doing this. This is how you do it. That is not how you do it at all. I don't care. I've never seen that. When I was in the Marine Corps, we weren't trained to do this. That's ridiculous, because if you happen to have another knife, I mean, there's actually stories that you can read with knife fights where people lost fingers. People's hands would get chopped a lot and they'd lose fingers, literally just cut right off. Also, in the knife fighting thing, when you see people trying to hit blades, it's all nonsense. At least the way we were trained. There's actually a famous book. I don't know if it's the Fairbanks Sykes book or Fairbairn Sykes book, but there's something called Take the Hand, which is, you know, you're here, you basically allow the guy to make a move on you, and then you step in, turn, take the hand. You always want to go in a chopping motion at the wrist or the arm. It's over. You know, that's how you disarm the guy. Take the hand, come back, boom, you know, that sort of thing. So, but if you have a tight grip like this, even trying to cut in this way, it overstresses the wrist and the muscles in your arm. It's a lot of fatigue there. Just by opening this up and laying your thumb across the top and resting it against the cross guard here, it's going to open all that up. Try it. Far more comfortable, and it's easier to adjust like that, okay? The big one for me is the chopping. I'm watching everybody grab this like this and just boom, 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 pound on things. What are you doing? Now, I can't tell you that the military went with this shape because of what I'm about to describe to you. I described it in other videos before, but the way the military works, I can tell you that's probably exactly what happened. I haven't seen the original notes or schematics or read about the conversations being had. I know the Marine Corps specifically asked for a design change on the knife, but I don't remember what that is right now. But the beauty of this is you can hook your finger here, grab this here, and allow that smooth section on the handle to pivot in your palm. And you flick it. And that is how you chop wood. You let the tool do the work, not your arm, not your shoulder. It's just silly. Now, it's easier for me to understand this because I work with my hands all day, and you learn eventually to let the tool do the job. Okay? And so I don't know what's going on. I mean, I've been using knives since I was a very young kid, and so I learned this stuff as a child, and I've always done it. So I'm thinking maybe what's going on is that a lot of the people doing the knife channel stuff are probably didn't grow up doing a lot of stuff with a knife necessarily, but they love knives and it's great. By the way, I'm not knocking them or their channels. They're fantastic. They got a lot more views than I got, a lot more followers, subscribers, and everything else than I have. I'm just some dude alone in a garage. So, but it's odd to me that they're just picking up knives and they're doing all this stuff because when they're doing it, to me, it appears that they don't know what they're doing. So if you don't know a lot about what you're doing and you're critiquing things, well, then that doesn't make any sense. What's your, you know what I'm saying? And let me just tell you, when I got out of the service, my very short time in the Marine Corps, very short amount of time I spent in there, I got in a lot of trouble. It's a whole other story, and I've told those stories before. You could look up my Marine Corps playlist. So when I got out, I started building houses. And my first this company I worked for owned a marina, and it's a long story. But two of the guys I worked with were World War II Army veterans. And they were very good carpenters. Well, the one was a carpenter, and the other one was a mason. That was Howard Fellner, 68 years old, landed in Normandy, marched all the way to Berlin with 2 mice in his pack. He never opened his pack up, and these mice had made a nest in there. That's the story he told me. So, anyhow, Howard was a mason, and my buddy's dad, Mr. Fret, I think his name was George too. He was a really good carpenter, and these guys were always giving me and us, the young guys, grief and making us feel stupid and just screwing with us all the time. And you had to learn by observation. They weren't showing you all the little details of how to handle things necessarily, you know. You watched it, and 2 weeks later, you might be asked to do that task, and you were supposed to know how to do it because you observed them doing it 2 weeks earlier. And if you didn't get it right, boy, oh boy, did you get, they just kind of jumped on you and screwed around with you all the time. So the thing about these guys was they always made it sound like the way they learned and the way they did it back in the day is better than the way we were learning and doing it. You know, we weren't as tough as them. We weren't as smart as them. You know, we couldn't hold a candle to them. And they were rubbing our nose in it all the time. And then as I evolved as a carpenter and started doing more home improvement work and all that, I ended up working on houses that were older that those guys had worked on, or guys just like them. And that's when I learned these guys are full of crap, man. Like I'm working on a wall that's 6 feet long. There's only 2 studs in it. So that's when it hit me. Just because somebody tells you that they did this or they've been doing something for X amount of time, it doesn't necessarily mean they've been doing it right. So you could have a knife channel and have been reviewing knives for decades and have handled thousands of knives. It doesn't mean you've been doing it right. And it's okay. Because when you're exposed to new information and a new idea and a new thought, maybe you should think about it and go out and practice what I'm showing you here or explaining to you, and then discover it for yourself. Find out if what I'm saying is nonsense, and then let me know. And with that, there's going to be a video on my I did one on fixed blades. Let's talk about fixed blade knives. And it wasn't my whole knife collection. It was just a bunch of knives I had in one area and a couple I grabbed off a shelf to make that video because I had a good broad range of different style knives. I just wanted to talk about the purpose and the history of them. But I wanted to bring this out because of the shape of the handle. Because a round handle is about the worst handle shape you could have. It'll give you more fatigue quicker, and there's no indexing. So you could pick this up. It could spin if your hands are wet. It could spin in your hand. You could pick it up to start to do something. You could realize you're actually holding it this way by mistake or this way by mistake, and you have to constantly redo it. You do have the guard. It helps because you can feel that. A lot of what you're doing when you start working with a knife, or if you're using a knife in a knife fight, or, which again, I don't think any of us are really going to have to do, or just natural tasks, camp tasks, survival tasks, that sort of thing. A lot of times you're doing something, you're not looking at your hand. You're not looking at how you're gripping the knife, you're just trying to do something. So with a round handle knife, oftentimes you spend a part of your time readjusting the knife in your hand. And if you're sweating, it has a tendency to want to spin as well. I mean, if you have knurling on here or grip, something like that, it helps. But I wanted to I grabbed this because it was a straight round handle. Again, the worst. But I wanted to show you how, even with this handle and a sharp edge at the end, you can still grab it back here and flick it to chop. Now, if you have one of these knives and you have a hole here, like you do, in particular if you have another hole back here, it's nice to have a lanyard running through this around your hand, or at least your wrist, so you don't lose it when you're flicking it. But you can still flick this. So when you see an older Bowie and it just has a straight, thin handle, you can still do this to chop with it. But again, those original older Bowies that have a blade, not with this silly thing on it, but they have a blade shaped more like this, that's not really a chopper. It's not really what it's not what it's for. But by doing this, you can make it more effective. And also, like on the whole knife fight thing, I'm not going to get into this. It's not going to be a tutorial on knife fighting, but there is a technique where you pinch this thing here and you flick it. So I could be in front of you and I could flick it. I can come out and just flick, and that's just going to give you a quick bam. You try to defend yourself, bam, I'm going to cut into your hand or your arm, or I'm going to come up, bam, I'm going to hit you real quick, and that's going to put a crease in your head. Blood's going to get in your eye. If you're smart, you're going to walk up, you're going to cower like this and say, no more, please. If it's a real combat situation, it's a different story. You're probably not even going to try to fight like that. You're probably going to just come in right away and, try to dispatch the guy. But the point is, that's just another little thing here. But again, chopping here, fighting here, also fighting here, blocking, striking, that sort of thing. But my biggest pet peeve, and the whole reason for this video is just this, is knowing you can do this. I don't understand why people aren't doing that. I can't tell you how many things I've chopped down like that. And also just, one other thing on this, a couple more things, I suppose. Why do I think this is like a great survival knife to have, the Bowie, especially with this shape? It's just because it can be used in so many different ways. People say it's too big to skin an animal. You can't get up tight or whatever. You see this? You peel the hide and you cut into it like this. You understand? You can lock this up against your arm, and that's how you would skin the animal. Also, by choking up on it, you can do tight tasks. Again, you saw this in the last video. You grab it here, and I can do my feathering, right? Turn your brain on. Just turn your brain on. It's very simple. If this was the only thing you had, and you were out in the woods by yourself, and you had to survive, these things would naturally come to you. That's the only way I learned them, was because I was out there doing them. Right? That's how I learned this stuff, was just being out there doing it as a young person. The things I did by the time I was 8 years old with my dad, it's crazy. It's insane. It's really insane. So, I'm just saying. When I see people doing the things I'm seeing them do, and they're trying to review a knife, but the basic technique that I'm showing you here, that I could do when I was in single digits, that they're not doing at all, it bothers me in my mind. It's like, It's like watching a war picture and somebody throws a hand grenade and there's a big ball of flame that happens when there's an explosion. That is not how a hand grenade works. It's not what it looks like at all. What you see, you can feel a concussion and you see a thing of dust pop up in the air. You might see some fragmentation, a bit of that, you know, like a cloud of dust and some fragmentation, and you can literally see the, you know, come out all around it. That's all it is. It's a poof. It's over. That's all there is. I put these out here. These are an old pair of motorcycle gloves of mine. These are deer hide. They're not easy to get on, actually. And you should, if you have a kit, you want to have some leather gloves. I've got grommets on these. And I've got a chest rig from Hill People Gear. And I have a little carabiner, and these gloves hang from that all the time. But if you're going to be chopping, working with something all day, if you put a pair of gloves on, you're going to avoid all the hot spots, which is another thing that in these videos, these guys are out there chopping, and they're not even doing that. And then they're complaining, oh, yeah, I got a blister here or there. If somebody's holding a knife like this without a glove on and they're complaining that the guard is giving them a blister, yeah, no more blister. Okay, I'm just going to keep reinforcing this point for you. That's how you do it. So that's that. I don't think there's anything else. Well, one last thing, I suppose. I brought this up the other day. In another video. This is a Woodman's Pal that was modified into a Bowie. It's a very thin blade, but this is 1075 spring steel. It holds a great edge, man. Holds a really great edge there. In the manuals, there's 4 manuals here that are reprinted by the Woodman's Pal company. It's $20 for that. I recommend that you get it. It's pretty cool, especially if you own one of these or the full-size regular one. In there, this is what they show you. That's how you hold it to do your tasks. All right, and the same thing here. You can grab this back here and you can flick it if you really want to chop with that thing. Now with the bigger one, I think you pretty much want to do this more. But I came home the other day with this, and I messed with the edge a little bit, and I was walking down the pathway. Oh no, was it this one? I think it was this one. I can't remember. But anyhow, I was walking down my pathway, and it gets overgrown. And where I live in Los Angeles, you know, my neighbors are always yelling at the gardeners, "Don't cut that! Don't cut that!" Yeah, well, when I'm walking down, and it's the friggin' jungle. I walked through my pathway the other day, and I had this thing, and I just went. Actually, I'm actually positive now that it was this one. I'm positive it was this one now. I remember thinking about that. So anyhow, I went through, and I just. Real quick, and I'm talking thin stuff that's somewhat flexible. Bam, bam, bam. Just walking through and just looking at that stuff fall. And like, wow, that was easy. So, as I mentioned in the video the other day, as a machete, it works. All right, and it's light enough to recover quick and not give you too much fatigue. Same thing with this thing. This thing is phenomenal. So anyhow, I hope this is something that turns a gear in your brain. So when you're watching these other videos, I want you to pay attention to how they're gripping their blades when they're doing the tasks. And if you see somebody constantly grabbing it like this and trying to do things, I want you to grab a knife in your house now. If you're a knife guy, if you're watching this and you have a Bowie knife, you know, if you have a W49, I want you to grab it like this, and I want you to just flick it in the air, and I want you to think about your body mechanics. I want you to think about your wrist, what's happening. I want you to twist it like this and do this. And I want you to think about what's going on and feel what's going on in your forearm with the muscles. And then I want you to grab it here like this with your thumb up. And I want you to do the same thing. And I want you to twist it. I want you to feel how much relief you now feel in your arm. You understand what I'm saying? I want you to grab it here. And I want you to just flick this in the air like this. And I want you to feel how easy that is. It's effortless, right? It's effortless. And you're going to understand. You're going to clearly understand. So don't just go by what I'm telling you or what I'm showing you here. Go home and do it yourself. You're home now, aren't you? What am I saying? I'm the one who's not home. Go home. I said it again. See what I'm saying? This is the knife I modified. And you see what I did with the handle here? This has been used, as you can see. This has been used a lot. And I will do this because it's so front heavy, but I can still, boom. And this thing cuts like a hatchet, man, an axe. This is amazing the way this thing splits. I could choke up here. Sorry, choke up here. I could choke up here. Fine work. All of that. This thing is probably, I think this is about the best camp tool I own. At any rate, I just wanted to show you guys this stuff and make you understand it's coming from practical experience. I'm not inventing this. I'm not making this up out of my head. I'm not a faker. You know, this is all because I've been doing it since I was a little kid. And which is funny because I think there's a bunch of you guys looking at this now laughing who live out in the woods, live on farms, are hunters, hardcore hunters, and you use knives all the time, and you're looking at what I'm saying right now, and you're agreeing with what I'm saying. You're like, that guy is right. Never picked up on that before. Whatever. Because it is funny. I live in the city. Like, why do I even know this stuff? You know what I mean? So, and it's easy for somebody to say, what does that guy know? He lives in the city. You know? It doesn't matter where you live. Does your brain work? Do you have any experience actually using this stuff in the real world? You know? It's just funny to me. It's odd because I give these guys credit because they're out there doing what I'd like to be doing. Like they're spending enough, they live in close proximity to a forest, to nature, brooks and streams and all this great stuff. And they're out there and they're chopping, they're showing you all this stuff they're doing. But when you look at how they're handling their blade, and then in particular, if you notice how they're handling their blade, and then they're complaining about the fatigue or blisters or whatever, well, now you know what's going on. They're not thinking it out. They're not ever. It's odd to me that nobody sits there and tries to figure out how to change a grip to make life easier. Make your life easier. Work hard. Work smarter. I was going to say work harder. Work smarter, not harder. Yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Be good to one another. I hope this is useful information. I hope you maybe learn something. And this is not me coming at it from being a know-it-all. I don't know everything. I've said that multiple times. Every time I think I do a video. But thanks again for being here. Come back again. I'll catch you guys in the next one.